All right. Hear ye, hear ye. And we are live. And welcome to the Iron Lords Podcast, LLC, and also lordsofgaming.net. And this is an ILP exclusive interview episode. I'm extremely excited to talk to our special guest. And we've got Grounded to an Obsidian to discuss. So we're going to get right into it. I want to introduce two lords who not only represent an Xbox game studio that fosters genre diversity, critical acclaim, and the raw science of shipping productivity, but recently has taken the co-op survival genre by storm with our favorite Honey, I Shrunk the Backyard Kids. Introducing first, the game director of Grounded 2, Burgle Tattoo loyalist, and Outer Worlds veteran. And introducing second, the executive producer of Grounded 2, Fallout New Vegas veteran, and one of the OG founders at Obsidian. Live from Irvine, California, home of the Black Rock of Excellence, and kind enough to make their debut into the realm of the Lords. My man, Lord Marcus Morgan and Lord Chris Parker. How you gentlemen doing?
We're doing
Hey,
great.
how's it going?
What an
Yeah,
intro. I mean, it can't get much better than being introed like that. I mean, what a welcoming. I'm excited now. So thank you.
yeah.
Absolute pleasure to have you into the realm of the Lords, your Lords at what you do. So it's only right we show you the proper respect here at the round table. Outside of Grounded 2, what you're working on, really quickly, any games have you either been playing?
Oh, that's a good question.
I am in Act 3 of Expedition 33.
Ooh,
Oh, that's amazing.
And I'm also playing through the Silent Hill 2 remake right now. So I
ooh,
think I think
nice.
that's what I've been. And the first one's on my Xbox, and the second one's
My
on my other
my
console.
community's trying to bully me into playing that Silent Hill 2 game.
No question. I
Yeah,
love
it's
it.
good.
Love the
So
choice,
yeah,
Chris. What you got,
I,
Marcus?
I couldn't help myself given that, we're a survival game and we're launching soon. And there was another survival game, Dune Awakening, that came out a
Ooh,
little bit ago. So I had to jump into that, scope out the competition, see what they were doing. So that was one that was on my list. Obviously, again, uh, we love gaming no matter where it's at. Death Stranding 2, I can't help myself. I'm a big Kojima fan. I'd make an argument that one of the influences that made me really want to work in games and be a part of that, especially from like a wild storytelling perspective. So
mm,
so checking out Death Stranding 2, and I also played Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. Love that. We can't help
turn-based
ourselves.
love.
It's an RPG.
Hmm.
So yeah, but Dune and Death Stranding are kind of my two right now.
Love it, love it. We will continue. I love it, no question. Of course, we got the original Lords of Rub here at the round table. My co-host with the co-most, my brother from another mother, the difficult game conqueror, Lord of his own world, and the how of the young wolf. My man, Lord Attic, how we doing? How excited we talk around it?
Doing pretty good. I played a good amount of the first Grounded, so I'm very excited to do this interview. Appreciate you guys for taking the time out of your day.
No question. So, all right, now we got the intros out the way. Let's get right into it. Lord Marcus, Lord Chris, first off, all praises due to Obsidian. I affectionately call you guys the Black Rock. You're the Black Rock of excellence, the Xbox Game Studio, and as far as I'm concerned, from the class of 2018. And y'all got the nerve to be shipping multiple titles this year. Avowed, obviously, grounded with the announcement, and then the Outer Worlds too. So, just real quickly, what sorcery is happening over there in Obsidian that you guys are able to ship so consistently? What is the secret sauce?
I think there's not a ton of a secret sauce. We have multiple teams, so that is helpful. Like we have always been a multi-project studio. We like shipping different things. We like being able to explore and push ourselves with things like Grounded or Pentiment, and then obviously our bread and butter with RPGs like Avowed and the Outer World. So one major component that ain't so secret is just we have multiple teams working on stuff. I think the other superpower that we've gotten, especially with Grounded 2, is we were able to partner with Idos Montreal, which is another incredible studio, and they are a huge reason why we were able to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish with Grounded 2, and again another component of being able to ship 3 games in 1 year. And I would say a little dash of madness, maybe a little bit of insanity built in there too, of like, hey, why not 3 if we're gonna do 1? So I think it's a mix of all of those things that are kind of allowing that to happen.
No, extremely impressive, and definitely, I say to Xbox affectionately, whatever Obsidian is doing from a leadership and a studio structure step, everyone needs to study this. You need guys to be studied. It is truly amazing, what you guys are doing there. And just to add on, Attic, I'll let you go after this. In reference to what you said, in reference to Idos Montreal, what I thought was very interesting, obviously with the development process of Grounded 2, no Adam Brennicky this time, right? And then obviously, Idos walking in. So what influenced that decision where Adam's not literally working on this title, but and then Idos is coming in?
Yeah, so to be clear, Adam does work on the title. So
Mhm.
he actually sits like maybe like 40 yards away from me. And so he's around, he's been up to Montreal with us. He plays the game constantly. He's involved in all our design discussions. But he's got other stuff going on. But him and a good group of people from the first game are constantly working with us and working with Montreal, Idos Montreal on everything we're doing, right? Because we want to keep that recipe and we want to keep the sort of secret sauce that made Grounded so awesome. And so he's absolutely around. But he 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 uh he was also ready to take a break from doing the interviews and being in front of all the public, doing all the various things that you do when you're in early access. He was in early access for a long time. And so he's taken a little bit of a step back to just help guide the process, guide the project, guide the vision, and do his thing from there. So that's why you get me instead of him. So
Which we love.
so that's good. Yeah. And then it was just fortuitous working or coming into this collaboration with Idos Montreal. So they happened to have a team who was coming off some other stuff. That team was super just geeked up about Grounded. They had played the game, they loved the game. We knew that if we were going to do everything we wanted to do with a Grounded 2, we were going to need a partner. We were going to need to grow the team. We weren't going to be able to do that internally because we have, as we already mentioned, these two other huge games that we're working on. We're working on Avowed. We're working on the Outer Worlds 2. We've got, maybe a couple too many pokers in the fire, right? And so we were like, well, we're going to need a partner for this. And they
Mhm.
were available. They were super excited about it when we got together and talked with them about it. They had great ideas. They had great passion. And we were like, hey, let's see if we can make this work. It's actually the first time really Obsidian has had a partnership quite like
Mm.
this. And it's worked out. It's worked out really, really well. We're super excited about it. They're super excited about it. It's been good.
And I'm
No.
a little bit of a romantic, I always like a good story or a good evolution. And I do think as well, Grounded One being an early access game, working alongside the community, so much of that was kind of like a micro co-development with the community. And how we view the extension with Idos is like a professional continuation of that experience. We got
Ooh.
so much out of building the game in early access and in-game preview that where Grounded One started is nothing like where Grounded One ended. And to extend that and to evolve that, this is almost like a natural kind of evolution of that with the partnership with Idos. So, like Chris said, it's been pretty fantastic. Hopefully, people see what that brings in terms of new ideas, new inspiration, pushing on each of us pushing each other to kind of make the best games we can for folks out there.
No, that's pretty awesome, and I'm glad you cleared that up in reference, to Adam and stuff. What I remember with Grounded One, just seeing the emotional response, how well Grounded was received. It was so heartfelt, it was so touching, and then obviously what you mentioned now, Marcus, with Idos, and it seemed like this natural fit. Look like their fans are part of your own community as well, now helping you co-develop. So it does seem like a seamless integration. Attic, I'll let you start talking because I've got tons of questions. I don't want to hog all the questions. So Attic, you jump in, man. What you got?
Yeah, so playing the first one, I did play a lot of that, and what I really appreciate what you guys do is you took the concept of like a map, but you put layers to it, so you made it bigger than what it realistically was, because certain parts of the map are different than other parts. So going into that, what did you learn from the different terrains going from the first one to the second one?
I
You
know
look like you're going to
this is
talk
easier. So when Chris and I
Marcus
have been doing a lot of these, we've been tending to do them in the same room.
together.
So
Yeah.
that
Oh,
way,
this is the first time you
the
said
vibe, the
right.
vibe is we know who's gonna jump in versus who's not. Like we can kind of like look at each other and like
Got
nudge
you.
one another. So doing it virtually. I'll start by saying, and Chris, you can kind of elaborate and build on this. Um, one of the things that I think has been really interesting and has dawned on us as we've been kind of talking about the game a lot, because sometimes you're so in the thick of it, you don't really take a step back and think through all of these things. But the introduction of buggies and mounts is like kind of our main new feature. My favorite thing we did with starting with the red soldier ant, beyond just petting it, of course, because you got to be able to pet your buggy, but it was that the red soldier ant could go in and explore kind of ant hills, and then that made us have to think about how we completely like expand and redesign interior spaces in a mounted fashion, because that's not very common, right? Like typically if you're riding a vehicle, you don't go inside, you kind of stay outside. But now we have this kind of interesting, unique experience where there's interior dungeons that can support this mounted gameplay, and it provides a uniqueness that's very true and authentic to the experience of grounded. Like, hey, if I can go into an anthill, I'm on an ant, I should be able to kind of do this off-road kind of experience. And I think that was a lot of that foundation and that groundwork that we had with exploring kind of our dungeons. Anthills, a lot of them are kind of our dungeons, and being able to be like, okay, how do we build and expand on that with buggies, I think is to me one of the really interesting places that I want us to continue to play in, with regards to the buggy experience and the mount experience, of not just being an overland experience, but also how can mounts impact dungeon crawling, right? And I think it's kind of exciting. I think we're just scratching the surface of that with our game preview launch next week, but I'm really excited to see that expand and that grow, of being mindful of making sure you can have the entire experience above ground, below ground, and everywhere in between.
It, you
I think
the the traversal you guys have kind of reminds me of like Tears of the Kingdom, where there's an upper part of the map, there's the surface itself, there's a lower part of the map, and what I really appreciate that is just how in depth that you guys are able to take advantage of everything in Grounded One.
Chris, I'm
talk a
sorry.
little bit about what maybe we learned from Grounded One. Just a couple quick things. Number one, I think that the joy of Grounded is that anybody can kind of walk into their backyard or walk into a park and relate to what it might be like to be a little tiny ant-sized person running around in there, and have your own designs going on in your head about how you would try to fight an ant, or what would be an interesting thing in that park in an actual grounded experience. And that we needed to like lean into that. So like man-made stuff in Grounded wasn't always like fun. Like the porch and the shed, like it's just not fun to run across a big empty desk or a big empty porch. It's cool to run around between all the grass blades where all the little insects and things are. And it's cool to go into the anthill. All that sort of like nature and organic environments tend to be the most fun and the most interesting. And so I think obviously having those man-made environments, works. We had several of them in Grounded, but like, how do we lean into that and keep those environments fun and organic, and also something that everybody can relate to?
Yeah, no, that's pretty well said, Chris. I definitely like the idea of what you said, because that's what makes Grounded cool to me. You know what I'm saying? It's like getting miniature kids run around this backyard, and these things that we normally take for granted are terrifying when you're facing insects
All
and
right.
things like that. Like, it is super cool. I wanted to go back to what you said, Chris, in terms of learnings and stuff like that. And one of the questions I had, because Grounded One is one of the few games during Xbox's multi-platform push that is literally almost on every platform. Right.
Hmm.
So the question I have for you guys is that, what are the specific learnings from the community and the data you receive in regards to the other platforms that maybe now you can now implement into what's going on with Grounded 2?
That's a good question. I would say, I know you asked Chris, but I
Yeah.
could pause. So I was going to jump in to say, um, well, one of the big features, like one of the things we care about as a studio always, is like player agency, right? With the role playing games, like player freedom, like let people play the way they want to play. Whether that's, hey, we support first and third person, depending on like your style of play. But there's also, we love one of the most important features of Grounded is shared worlds, right? Because that's what allows you to kind of pair up with your friends, gives you that dedicated server vibe, all that sort of thing, and it's awesome. So we strongly encourage everyone, like, make sure you kind of you try that out and see that. But as we started to go to different platforms, the truth is, like, not everyone on every single platform, whether it's Steam or PlayStation or Switch, they don't all have Xbox Live accounts. And so one of the aspects was like, well, we still want people to play together. And even if shared worlds can't kind of work if you play natively, we still want to give you that experience of being able to play multiplayer, because being able to play co-op, being able to play together, like, we love grounded single player, but co-op is like, that's where the magic happens. And really, because that's where the chaos happens. Like, that's where kind of the fun is. And so that was one thing that we kind of built out and we designed, was like letting players play the way that they wanted to play, and providing kind of that native multiplayer support. So it's not like a revolutionary feature, but the spirit of it was just making sure we're always really conscious of what the community is looking for, bringing them together, finding solutions, regardless of how, like, even if we have to make some compromises in some places to make sure people can have as full of the experiences they want. And I would say that's kind of like one of the biggest learnings outside of, I see it even now kind of too. It's like, when's it coming to these next platforms? Other than there's a fan base,
they're gonna ask,
and there's a fan base and a demand that people just want to be able to play it in other places. But I would say, like, that was one of the things that we just, we kind of had an inkling, but it was made clear to us when we started to evolve and expand platforms. Like, we had to let people play the way they wanted to, regardless of what platform they were on. And so I would say that was the big one for me personally.
No, that's huge. One little follow up to that, then I'll pass it back to Addict. I just feel the shared world feature is just one of the great things of Grounded. I really appreciate it because as a person, getting friends together, you got people who are not consistent. They drop in, they drop out, and just keeping the fun going. I thought it was dope. But I even see, I believe, State of Decay on their labs is kind of utilizing, took some learnings, I believe, from you guys of what they're doing. I think that's really cool. One of the things that I do want to say is, though, what are the challenges with handling a narrative experience in that format with shared worlds? And then one of the feedbacks or things that we got from our community in reference to shared world was, how do you address the lag, with people with the first game, was, with that experience?
Yeah. And I'll turn it over to Chris and I'll talk about it. I want to make one slight adjustment because I always like to give people props, like, appropriately. And I just wanted to give a shout out. So the backstory to shared worlds, Undead Labs actually started kind of working on that tech and that ahead of time. And this is one of those great things about being kind of a part of the Xbox Game Studio ecosystem, where we were trying to create this solution and we tapped them and they were like, oh, we've started this, and we kind of iterated on it, shipped it with Grounded 1, and then kind of passed it back. And so this has been like a collaboration. We talk about kind of community and building on each other's, like, success. That was one that, big shouts to Undead for giving us, like, that starting point, and then kind of hopefully they feel the love back of us, kind of like returning it as they're continuing to work on State of Decay stuff as well. So I just wanted to, I'll turn it over to Chris, but I always like to give props where props are due across the different teams. That's kind of a collaboration between both of our studios. So
that's awesome. I'm sorry, good, Chris.
Yeah, no, I mean, talking to the narrative thing in shared worlds, like, honest, to be honest here, we haven't really cracked that, right? Like, it's a tough one, and you have, shared world is essentially creating a persistent world. And when you have this linear storyline going through it, if somebody's not there to see that, there's really no way for them to go back for it unless you create, instances effectively in the world where people can go trigger them effectively in like a single player offshoot of the shared world. And so, to be fair, we've talked about this, but like in early access, that's not going to be there. And it's a bummer for me because, like, when somebody fires up a 4-person game, if somebody starts 10 minutes before the other 3 players, well, those other 3 players sort of miss that tutorialization that happens at the very beginning of the game, which is like really critical learnings, like, well, or can be, especially if you're new to the franchise, right? We just don't have a good solution for it right now. It is something that we've been talking about and thinking about because yeah, I think it's a bummer. It sucks if you miss that cool story moment or you miss the intro to this boss fight or whatever, like, that can be a bummer. And hopefully we'll have it solved sometime during early access. We'll try and figure that one out.
I mean, not to always like overprotect ourselves, but like, that is just it's a natural tension between multiplayer games and storytelling. This is why it's really, really challenging to kind of create those, like, what does a multiplayer RPG look like? I don't know. It starts to blend and become more of an MMO than it does an RPG. And so you start to lose things in these those points of tension. What I would say of like, while we haven't cracked how do you make sure everybody can experience the cutscene, even if it's asynchronous solution, I will say just our approach with storytelling and world building and Grounded has been one of making sure that the story fulfillment and the fantasy comes like with world building elements and not just individual cutscenes. Like a lot of people's story in Grounded is their own story, right? Like it's what they are making. And it's like, oh, we uncovered the baseball together and built a base around this, and like that's our story. And like, oh, and then I heard a trigger for Willow's like VO bark in that moment in time, which built out her character. Or I found this little like milk molar over here in this corner, and whatever it might be. We try to make sure that there's story being built all around you all the time. So even if you miss some of the main ones, you still feel like you get immersed in this world. You get connected to these characters. So again, Chris, I'm super agree. I was like, man, that's gonna be a tough one. Or gives you some more time talking to the Undead Labs thing. But there's always going to be that natural tension. But we do try to approach story maybe a little bit differently than we approach story with our RPGs, because we know we do have that tension there. So we can't rely on people to get kind of those major set pieces with a multiplayer experience.
Well said, Lord Attic. What you got? You're muted.
This is kind of a two-part question. First thing, speaking Undead Labs, that there was no tethering in the original Grounded, but where you guys are going on a bigger scale in terms of map, I was curious if there's tethering in this one. Also, I want to talk a little bit about, the networking in terms of playing with multiplayer with shared worlds since it's returning. Can you give a little bit of perspective on what you guys have done to improve that process? Because sometimes there would be lag even if you were playing under the same house in terms of, the host or not. So I'm just curious on those things. I don't know which one of you want to tackle those.
Well, I can jump on quickly and say there's no tethering in the world. So, one of the, Unreal 4 was great with world building and streaming. Unreal 5's better. And we're building an Unreal 5. But we're always adding stuff into the world. We're going into early access. We are going to see some performance issues here and there. Those are just things that we're going to be tackling throughout early access. All I can say is, our tests are generally pretty good, generally not laggy. We're not really seeing any big performance issues, any lag spikes, any stuff like that. But it might happen. We'll see. We're just going to do our best, the best we can to make sure those are minimized and everybody's having awesome performance on whatever platform they're playing on.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that should help with that Chris was alluding to, but I'll just put a point on is we didn't have streaming or world partitioning in Grounded 1 versus like we will have that now with our move to Unreal 5. Unreal 4 is supported as well, but when we started, that's not what we kind of utilized. So that should help kind of minimize some of those issues relative to Grounded 1, even though we're going to a bigger map and a larger scale. And then like Chris said too, just us trying to focus on optimization and improving over time. The other piece, just to be real, is Grounded 1 was rooted on the Xbox One on old hardware. So depending on what you play on, like, and the fact that we've moved kind of to Xbox Series S and X and PC focus, your platform and the host, if you have a harder or like a better piece of equipment, should help with that too. Like there are just some constraints that we have. Like, if you're playing on a Nintendo Switch and you're trying to host 4 people multiplayer, we start burning that thing up a little bit. We start
give me a little bit of challenge.
Jamming a lot in there. So there's just some like, the reality of the situation where we do our best to kind of, lower certain settings or adjust certain things to try to help make that performance better. But like Chris said, the move to UE5 kind of world partitioning and streaming should help a little bit with so there's not as big of an issue, even if you do have, a Series S, for example, so that still works. And last thing I want to say is while we don't have tethering, just call out as a component of multiplayer, because I do think this is fun, is
Mhm.
The way our difficulty scaling works in Grounded is it's always about it is tracking how many players are around at any given time, and that'll scale the difficulties of each creature you encounter. So sometimes you can run off on your own, and then you go off, and then it's almost like single player difficulty if you're too far away from
Oh,
your friends. And so
Lord Attic mode. Like,
it's
he
it's
gets
a
to build,
good
he gets to run off
yeah,
because he's stronger than
or
everybody.
or
So
you know exactly if you have one of those people like we have one of our QA testers Jesse he's real good at the game. He likes to run through and on everything, and he feels like we hold him back and he
yep,
can do
yep.
better on his own.
I got one of those in Claire. Continue.
If you want that, like the
I
game
just
does
hear
adjust
hating
for the
call.
game
That's all I hear.
scale. So
Well, I enjoy that, giving, people that enjoy that type of experience the option to express that experience.
No, that's super cool. I love the fact that that's was kind of part of the design and the scaling, right? If you have someone that is really equipped at the game and kind of goes off and breaks off, and you still have that in mind. That's really cool. I know it's early. I know we're doing preview, but can we talk performance yet? Or are we looking at consoles for our Series X and S consoles right now? Are we performance this year? Or are we still in the early process?
Not sure if I understand the question, but I mean, we're on Series S, we're on Series X.
Mhm.
We are almost 100% of the time at 30 on Series S.
Mhm.
Pretty much 100% of the time. But I mean, just to caveat that, uh, not only can you have all of the chaos that you had in Grounded One, we also added Buggies into the mix. So instead of maybe just four players plus whatever insects you might get in a scuffle with, we added four Buggies too. So the chaos in Grounded One can kind of be multiplied as well as you're all running around on Buggies. You got all the players. You get into a fight with a stink bug, and suddenly two mosquitoes show up, and where'd that scorpion come from? And chaos ensues. So when I say almost all the time, you can get yourself into situations where we might see some performance hits. But
Mhm.
on the Series X,
Mhm.
we have that typical like you want frame rate or you want quality. So if you're on quality settings, you're running at 30 all the time. If you're on performance, you're running at 60 all the time.
Nice.
Again, you can get some lags there. You can get some hits, particularly when you get in really big combats and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But those are looking pretty good for performance right now, and we're going to keep working on that and keep just trying to improve that all throughout production. And we're going to have to too because the park's going to keep getting bigger as as we go through early access, and so we have to always be fighting against that to make sure that we're keeping that frame rate.
Oh no, that's cool. Great. That's a great news to me. As a person who loves options, I
Yeah,
love the fact that it is there. Obviously for
yeah.
Series X users and stuff like that. That's really cool to have that performance thing. And I wanted to talk. You said I wanted to kind of elaborate kind of more what you said, Chris, in terms of the rendition and buggies and all the things that you're including. Right now, you have this scale. You have bugs. You have a kind of more dense and a bigger world. Almost what 3 times the size of the first one. Is that about accurate? Would you say?
That's the plan. So
Okay, the plan.
what you're getting in early access game preview
Mhm.
is about the same size, like roughly the same size as the yard. So pretty much all of Grounded One is about what we're launching into early access with, and then again we'll be adding pieces to that park over time with our updates, and we think it's going to be like in that neighborhood around 3 times as big. We'll see when we get there though.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Fair enough. Where I was going with it was kind of like with Buggies. Like I just think this is the coolest thing that y'all added. Like I'm like, this is amazing. It's like having a little like a personal ATV that's an ant that's domesticated and I can run around. And then on top of that, have combat with some of them. Like obviously, you look like you're gonna have different types and stuff like that. How worried about you with the scope of this? Like adding, he could be a companion, he could fight, you could ride it, you could fight with it, and then different types. Like, how worried that the player base could go absolutely crazy with this stuff?
uh, we were so worried we made a whole separate game to account for it. I think is the way I would reply to that. Like to your point, like uh, worried and excited because that is the baseline for Grounded 2, right? We needed to create this larger space. We needed to upgrade all of our tools and our engine and everything else to move things forward so we could have that same experience that you have in the overlands and underlands now with buggies and not kind of interrupt the ground experience that they aren't just mounts that you ride either, that they are things that you can go out and you can chop down grass blades with your red soldier ant. You can gather materials. You can build your bases while you're still mounted on your ant. And yeah, you can go fight and you can recruit worker ants to come join your little ant army. Like we wanted them to be integrated fully into the experience, and we almost we wanted it to expand the scope. Though to your scope thing though, and like where people's imaginations go, this was one of the things that we talked about pretty early on of like, how many buggies do we start with, right? Because there was some conversations of like, do we put a bunch out there so people can mess around with a bunch of different ones? And one of the things we thought about was, and you talked about, you guys asked about learnings. Like one big learning we had from Grounded One was you get the most out of the early access process when you're really intentional about what you want to really iterate on with the community versus what maybe is stuff that you need to kind of plan out longer term. Buggies are one of those features that we want to iterate on with the community. So as opposed to throwing out, like 5-6 different buggies that then kind of anchor us, and now every time we try to make a change that the community wanted, of like, oh, I wanted y'all to zig and you zag, like we don't have to change all those. We have the freedom to see how the community plays with it and then like drives us in that direction. So with our early access game preview launch, we have 2 buggies and we kind of picked them at different ends of the spectrum. That red soldier ant that I talked to you is a more utility off-road ATV buggy. And then the murder machine that is the orb weaver.
Okay.
That is the end game of early access that is just, it can't really gather, it can't really build, but it can fight.
We there for fighting. We for the smoke. We for the smoke.
And that's the point of that buggy. And so we want to give those 2, and we want to make those feel really, really good and feel right, and and have all of those components, have those special abilities like shooting webs and having roars that intimidate other enemies, but then give enough space for ourselves and our community to really drive the direction of where that goes for things like buggy progression or maybe how we add in different kind of abilities or customization or expansion to those things. And so that was really a big part of like, the scope is, we want to push that scope, and this is kind of the way of doing it, is kind of giving an open platform and a clear runway for us to go in and kind of take buggies to the maximum. I mentioned it before, but like, one of the things that maybe in the back of our minds, we won't show it right now, concerns us is, I talked about the gap and the change that happened from Grounded One's initial launch to the end. And I think we're starting at a pretty high point. Chris said we have the entire space that we had at the end of Grounded One at the beginning of Grounded Two. It's not just the space, it's like, what features do we have to go to? So there is there's pressure on our shoulders, and we realize it and have the ambitions to want to, like, this is just our starting point. And kind of our imaginations are running wild about where can it go to by the time we get to the end with Grounded 2, especially with buggies, like how many there are, what abilities they have, how they progress, how they evolve, how you fall in love with them. Like, we want to push that as far as we can.
No, that's awesome. I love hearing that stuff. Super exciting. And again, just all the possibilities that could happen. Attic, I know you got a ton of more questions stuff you want to get in.
I got one more question for you guys, as me. Now, this is going to be a tough one. In terms of super bosses, because that was my biggest fan of the original one. Stuff like the Black Widow. What is the plans for Grounded 2? You guys planning on bringing some of those older bosses back? Are you going to create newer bosses, or is it a mixture of both? On what you can say.
Yeah, so we got to keep some of the surprise out there. But
they would kill me if I didn't ask. They would absolutely demolish me
for sure. Number one, we've got some cool stuff in early access. Some stuff that we think are fun surprises that are completely unique to the early access game preview of Grounded 2. And then we've got pun intended, big plans for some of our early updates for the game. So yeah, we know that there's it's interesting. So there's like different kinds of Grounded players, right? There's people that love to build, there's people that love the story, there's just co-op people that just want to goof off. There's people that just love the fighting and the combat, and especially the big bosses, right? And so we gotta play to all of those. And I'm the weird one that kind of likes all the things, right? I'm whatever. I mix up all my food on the plate. It's great. Yeah, we know that we've got to have some really cool, really big, and really unique bosses, and so we're doing that. As it stands right now, we don't have any returning bosses, do we, Marcus? I don't
No,
think
no.
so.
Every boss that we
Every
have
boss is
in
new.
early access
Yeah.
game preview is new, and like to Chris's point, some are us experimenting with a new way to have a boss. That's what I put on. We
Yeah.
have small
Yeah.
experiments that we're trying to have. That's the culminating kind of boss fight for the early access game preview experience that we're looking forward to see how fans react. That might catch you off
Right.
guard a little bit with what we do
Okay.
in our boss fights. So
Mm.
yeah, we know bosses are important. We know that's a category that people want to try to beat them blindfolded on one leg with half a controller. But so we have plans to at game preview and early access to
So,
have some fun stuff for you, and then follow up or as we can with more to come.
okay, so I have a quick follow-up, just a very short answer because I know we're running out of time. I gotta know, was there ever a plan to fight the fish in the little pond in the first round? Was that ever on the scale? Because I'm kind of curious because it's always down there, and I'm like, what's this thing doing
Yeah.
down here?
The fish and the lizard boss, the meme that was
I
leaked
know.
online.
Why
Yeah,
do you
yeah,
have to,
yeah.
why do you have to remind everybody about the lizard boss on top of it? One of the things that so we want to push ourselves to try to get as like the scale is what people like, and they want big epic bosses, and we want to push that as far as we can. There is a component of things though, and we kind of prototype some of this stuff out because you are the size of an ant. If you try to fight something like a fish or a dog, it becomes kind of not fun and possible in the same ways, right? We have to do a little bit more creative stuff to make those colossal creatures really work. So we definitely though, like to Chris's kind of we don't want to spoil too much because you'll see it. Even by next week when we launch, we want to be pretty transparent about our plans, and we have a roadmap, and it'll kind of indicate that for you. On come Tuesday, you'll have some answers about what's coming in the
Okay,
future. So we want to
I
push that
appreciate
stuff,
that.
but those big ones, they're harder to make the fun happen than you think. But we still, yeah, of course, when you put a fish in there or a bird in there or the lizard, yeah, everybody wants to fight it. We start with like, let's see if we can fight this thing. Yeah, absolutely.
I do have to say though, there's a certain, and I think that this is okay. And actually, I don't know if anybody ever wanted to fight the fish on the internal team or not, but that koi fish serves a really nice purpose, which is there is a constant, impossible obstacle cruising around in that pond. And when you hear that fish, like it makes a like noise or whatever, and you know that thing is around, that is a terrifying moment. And I think it's great. So like, I think it serves a cool purpose. Like there's no fear of the bird, right? It's just dropping feathers on you or whatever. That koi fish can be terrifying,
No,
which is great. I love it.
this is cool. Love hearing this stuff, especially, the combat and seeing the improvements. And it looks like you got archetypes and loadouts, and you're really going with the bosses. You're going all out. It's really cool. I do want to give you guys some credit, one of my final two questions in terms of, the announcement from the team that, hey, no microtransactions, and it seemed like it was really received well. And in my opinion, I was like, hey, I thought you could have added customization options if you chose and stuff like that. So I guess the question is, obviously about, the customization, backpack tools, different things that our favorite kids could wear. And there's been talk about the scab and the Omni tool potential customization. So anything you could tease there, or just as far as options, as far as making our kids look different, even though we know there's no microtransactions?
So we're launching with a founders pack because we did hear people wanting kind of like some customizations and that sort of stuff. So that's purely cosmetic, and there will be some skins, and they're all kind of themed as in Grounded. There's a our version of D&D which is called Minotaurs and Myrmidons, and so we created kind of some skins that like speak to that spirit, speak to the RPG roots of the studio, and just kind of a fun nod. So we did hear that. We wanted to deliver some customization stuff that you can have. But there's also, that you pointed out, there's also some customization opportunities in the game that's separate from that, like purchasable pack of stuff. So we always want to keep that balance. I'll just say, like at a super high level on the payment stuff, like there's no judgment or anything for all that stuff for any type of game. I think the big thing for us as a team is we want to respect our players' time and their money, and so like always we're trying to just deliver against that. And if we can work our way to do that, that's kind of going to be the case. But you know, one of the first podcasts we did was I got a request from on the Xbox podcast for Buggy shoes, and people want to paint their bases, and we know people want to own their grounded space and customize more. And so, without saying too much or painting ourselves too much into a corner, I will say we hear you, we see you. We have some plans to make sure that you can kind of even own that more for customization as it goes, and we'll find a really good balance of like putting a lot of that stuff in the game, and as well as, you know, if people want to expand their experience more with something like a founders pack, some opportunities to do that as well. I don't know, Chris, do you have anything else you want to add for customization stuff?
No, I'm just going to double down on what you said. And in terms of, we know that there's the players out there want it, the community wants it. We're going to be trying to bring that stuff online throughout early access and game preview to help, you know, satisfy that craving for customization.
Speaking of, and not to belabor too much time, I know y'all probably want to go, but we'll talk about Grounded all day.
Oh no, we like talking about Grounded.
Is with that founders pack, one of the things that we're kind of also excited about is, you know, it's launching with some skins, some emotes. There's actually some hidden Easter eggs if you find them that will trigger that if you have those skins on in certain moments, that'll be fun for the community to uncover. But the other thing we wanted to do with that, to kind of, you know, uphold that kind of sense of like making sure we respect our players' time and money, is if you get that founders pack, we are going to be adding stuff to it over time for free. And so the part of the idea behind that is, again, the spirit of community building and early access is, as we add stuff in, we can see what are people liking, what do you want, what makes sense, and how does that add value. So that is the other component of that is that will be kind of additive. Like both the art book and soundtrack will keep doing updates to each new update. We'll add, you know, give you kind of the sneak peek and behind the scenes of how those things came to be. And then we'll add things like building materials, or building furniture and stuff like that to the game as well in those packs. And we'll just see what people like, and that'll help inform us to make sure we're doing it right moving forward. So
that's awesome, man. I really, really appreciate the time here and just learning all about Grounded, and again, taking the feedback and then growing it, and then again, presenting those options are super cool, especially with customization, things of that nature. Just wanted to, you know, send our love to the teams, because I'll be honest, you know, as a person who is, one, not a survival game guy, two, know you guys as a studio for being like the RPG guys, right? And I remember seeing the announcement for Grounded 1, and I'm like, no, what are they doing? I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Like, this is full transfer. Like, oh no. And I remember coming in kind of ready to be judgmental. And I picked up that controller, and the interface, the onboarding, the story.
He was wanting to hate, but he couldn't hate.
I was like, Obsidian did it again. They got me now loving a genre I generally don't like. And it's just so fun. And then obviously the cooperative, the shared worlds, and the sense of exploration. And then obviously the danger of spiders and all type of things going on. So salute to the teams. I mean, you guys are absolutely crushing it. Obviously July 29th, obviously next week is when
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. Any words to the community, the things they should look out for, how they can do support, and again, send our love to the team in reference to this fantastic, ambitious project in 3 games in 1 year. Just wow, we were not expecting this from Obsidian.
Yeah, I'll just quickly jump in and say, hey, look, the community for Grounded is one of the most supportive and like friendly communities. So if you're new to Grounded, don't be afraid to jump into it. It's actually like a really great community. We do actually listen to every bit of feedback that we get. We have people that are always looking at that stuff. And thankfully, I don't have to go through thousands and thousands of messages. I get it broken down a little bit for me. You know, obviously I'm up there too, but that's a lot of stuff to review. But we look at all of it. We evaluate all of it. And if you want to be part of that, check us out on Discord. We're the Grounded Game on Discord. That's our main channel, but we're up on all social medias. You know, get out there, play some Grounded, especially if you got Game Pass. It's free. Download, get on the community, check it out. Yeah, Marcus, I don't know, help me.
Yeah, no, I want to just say, you know, I think, yeah, Grounded, you had mentioned kind of in the upfront of how Grounded, there was one of us with a tattoo of Grounded on their body, and that is me. I'm the one with the tattoo, and you know, that's a permanent thing. That's a thing for life. You know, I'm part of the community, and I always want to say, like, to Chris' point, like, it's one of the most fulfilling experiences I've ever gotten to be a part of. And so much of that is because of the people who play the game with us together. And so I just want to say thank you for that love and support. We don't take it for granted one bit. You know, we feel immense pressure to want to make sure we satisfy folks for, because now you all aren't doubters anymore. Now it's now believers. So now we have to like actually fulfill for the believers. So we hope we do that. And it's just the start on July 29th. And we're excited to kind of do this journey again together with everyone. So just thank you all for the love, for the support, for the criticisms, all of it. And we hope to kind of see you in the park here.
No
here
doubt. Lord Attic, any final words for Lord Marcus and Lord Chris on Grounded 2? Get out.
It's always a pleasure to interview Obsidian. This is actually the second time we've interviewed
The
your
Black
guys'
Rock
studio.
excellence.
Respect all your games. Like, trust me, I'm right there with Cog. I was hating. I was like, man, a survival game. You know, obviously spelled out the stuff, man. I wanted this or that. But then when you play it, you was like, man, now I got to go on this podcast and tell people I was wrong.
Literally, absolutely, man. Again, Lord Marcus Morgan, Lord Chris Parker of Obsidian Entertainment, an absolute pleasure to discuss Grounded 2 early access game preview July 29th. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your day. You are lords in the realm, and send our love to the team. Grounded 2.
Thank you very much.